Welcome, folks. We're going to give it a few seconds to let people get into the room here. So we'll get started here shortly. Welcome. Excited to have you here. Right. Right. Well, I think we're at 3. So Marta, is it okay if we get started?
That'd be fine. Super. Great to be here.
Great. So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today for our 2023 series finale of the Conversations at the Washington Center. If you don't know by now, Conversations, this event series is an alumni exclusive series that brings you up close and personal with your fellow alumni experts to discuss timely topics that shape our world. My name is Melissa Currents, and just a little bit about me. I attended TWC in 1999, which seems like forever ago. And I live in Cincinnati, where I'm a brand communications manager for Procter & Gamble. I'm proud to serve as a Midwest regional representative of the Alumni Leadership Council of TWC. So we'd love to hear from you all. And so if you would like, we'd love to have you start adding introductions in the chat. So we're going to drop your name, if you can, TWC year, and then where you're joining from. And you are also welcome to drop your LinkedIn profile as well. And I think I can even do that myself, but I might have to do that, as we get started. So the leadership alumni, the Alumni Leadership Council, that's hard to say, launched earlier this year with 14 regional representatives who support and help plan and execute the Washington Center's alumni programming, both locally, regionally, and then also virtually. So before I introduce today's special guest and speaker, I want to share a couple quick housekeeping tips. So as you already probably know, this event is being recorded. We have the chat room open, and so please add your comments and questions and feedbacks as we go along. And we're going to have our conversation with Marta here shortly. We will hopefully have some time for a couple of questions. You all also sent in questions ahead of time, so we got those ready to go as well. So now it's time to introduce our excellent speaker, Dr. Marta L. Tellado, who is a 1981 Washington Center alumni, as well as an active member of the Washington Center Board. Marta has served as president and CEO of Consumer Reports since 2014. And prior to joining CR, Marta served at the Ford Foundation, the Aspen Institute, the Partnership for Public Service, and the Office of Senator Bill Bradley of New Jersey. You'll also want to check out Marta's latest book called Buyer Aware, Harnessing Our Consumer Power for a Safe, Fair, and Transparent Marketplace, which chronicles the importance of consumer rights in creating an inclusive economy and strong democracy. Marta is an expert on issues facing consumers and has been featured in several major outlets, including CNN, Forbes, Marketplace Morning Report, New York Magazine's Pivot podcast, and USA Today, just a few of my favorite publications. She's earned a PhD in political science from Yale and a bachelor's from Fairleigh Dickinson University. So Marta, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you, Melissa. It's terrific to be back and to be in a room with so many remarkable TWC alums.
Yes, we have a proud community, so it's good to get together. So I'm going to jump in and get started here. So we have a few questions, Marta. And so to start us off, could you share with everyone how your path brought you to Consumer Reports and why you decided this was an important time to write a book on consumer power?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me, and for all of you in the room, thanks for taking the time. Some of you maybe you're on the West Coast, but some of you are here, and so it's a work day. So your secret is safe with me. We can all be in this room together. How did I come to Consumer Reports? It's a great question. I certainly didn't grow up saying one day I want to be the CEO of Consumer Reports, but I did grow up saying to myself, regardless of which path I take, I want to make a difference. I want to contribute to society. I want to leave something behind that is better, and mainly in gratitude. And I think that totally stems from my own life journey, my origin story. My parents immigrated to the US from Cuba when I was a little girl. And they left everything behind because they believed in an idea. They believed in democratic freedoms and economic equity, and that they could coexist and thrive. And in the middle of a revolution, they saw that promise dissipate. And so they came to the US. And that was a tremendous sacrifice. I'd like to say that my biggest break was their biggest heartbreak, because it must have been incredibly hard to leave with 4 toddlers and to blaze a new trail. But it just makes you so aware of how fragile even what you think of as a democracy or as in governmental institutions are. And so it made me so curious about Washington and about how one has to create a healthy democracy. And so I thought it was an interesting time for myself to write a book, Buyer Aware, to tell that larger story about our democracy, that I think it really can only flourish if we have a marketplace that is fair and that's just for everyone. And so the book tries to reveal what's holding us back. How can we as consumers forge a path for change? And it was also a recognition that we're at a crossroads. The balance of power has tipped more in favor of corporate power and putting more power in the hands of companies, not the people in charge. And we live in an age where so many of the consumer protections that we fought so hard for in our 87-year history are at risk because they don't apply to what has become a very new reality, and that's the digital marketplace. So I do think that we are at a new frontier where we can sort of pave a path for the kinds of consumer protections we need, as digital citizens. And that's what the book is. It's really a handbook and a playbook for how to grow your consumer power.
Wow. Yeah, and I know that you joined in 2014, and so you've seen this evolution of like the big 4. I know in your book you talk about the big 4, and I know you talk in your book about your family and your origin story. So that's a great piece of the book if you all want to check it out. And you mentioned about democracy, and we are in a fraught time in our democracy, and we know that there's very little trust in institutions or even the government. And how do you can you share a little bit of how you see this idea of consumer rights as civil rights?
Yeah, that's like the question I get asked most often, because I talk about so many things in the book. And I also make this, I put a stake in the ground and I say consumer rights are civil rights. And so people hear that and they're like, what do you mean by that, Marta? And I think it's pretty straightforward. I think both consumer rights and civil rights are inextricably linked. If you think about our civil rights, that's the ability for us as citizens to fully participate in social and political systems. And when you think about what are consumer rights, I think it's really about having the guarantee that you're treated fairly in a critical part of those systems, and that's the marketplace. Like, everyone deserves a fair shake in the marketplace, regardless of where you live, the color of your skin, your gender, whoever you choose to love. And I think we as consumer advocates know otherwise, that not everybody is treated fairly, that the marketplace is not transparent. And if you think of the marketplace as the place you go to reach your aspirations, to get a college loan, to get car insurance. If you drive a car, you have to have car insurance. Well, how is the marketplace treating you? Are you being guided into a loan that's going to put you in a whirlpool of debt? What we know from our investigations, in 2017, we did an investigation with ProPublica, and we found that car insurance, which all of us need to have if we want to drive a car, you think about car insurance as like, oh, well, the premium that I pay is related to how good of a driver I am. Not the case. The algorithm that drives that price point for you is driven by other things that have nothing to do with your driving. And what we discovered in the investigation was that it was really more contingent. It was more related to the zip code that you lived in. And so what we found was that if you lived in a Black or brown neighborhood, as opposed to the adjacent white neighborhood, with a similar accident, a risk and cost, you were paying, if you were Black and brown, 30% higher for your car insurance. And that's just one example, and there are many. So that's, I think, what I mean by consumer rights are civil rights. I think it demonstrates just how deeply intertwined these are. Can we really call our democracy fair and a road to opportunity for others if the marketplace is not transparent and we don't hold companies accountable for the kinds of roadblocks that they put on our own aspirations for our family and for ourselves?
Yeah, it's thinking about like the equality piece that really strikes of important, like trying to think about making sure that there is equality as like a citizen, as a consumer. It is very intertwined.
Yeah. And the other thing, Melissa, what a lot of people don't know, we were founded in 1936. So we've been around a long time. And one of our first founding board members was A. Philip Randolph. And in 1963, he was one of the founders and leaders of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. And he was also was able to unionize the Pullman's Union way back when, which was mostly a Black union. And I've always kept this quote near and dear to me because I think it demonstrates the point. He said that, a community is only democratic when the humblest and the weakest person can enjoy the highest civil, economic, and social rights that the biggest and most powerful possess. And I always get a great sense of pride in that comment because I think he had such foresight and understanding how the civil and the economic and the social are really intertwined.
Wow. That yes, and I think you have his quote in your book as well. So
I do.
Yeah.
Well, and thank you for reading it. You caught that.
Yes. Of course. So thinking about innovations, and like you kind of touched about this, like digital marketplace. So like innovations are developing faster than ever in this digital marketplace. And what do you believe are some of the most important considerations for charting our consumer-focused digital future?
Well, at Consumer Force, we embrace innovation. We are gadget geeks. We love it when we see new safety features that are keeping drivers safer, pedestrians safer. And so we look at that and we say, that's terrific. And we look at products that are, way back in the day, you were afraid your toaster was going to blow up. It's very different dangers now. And we're talking about connected products. And so the flip side of that connectivity and of that innovation is that it is racing at a speed much faster than any kind of oversight, either around safety, around your own personal identity and the data. And so we take a hard look at how can we evolve innovation in a way that puts consumers first, right? When you think of all the free stuff that's on the internet, it's like, oh, this is great. I'm going to get this. It's free. And well, it's actually not free. You're giving up a lot of your own rights and your data each time you get tracked or you are hacked or you are a victim of cybersecurity scams, you name it. And so when you see that freemium sign, I think that means that you're the product and you're what's being leveraged. And we like to recognize that for consumers to have an equal footing, we have to be designing things with consumers in mind. You can design more ethical AI. One can design products that don't put all the burden on you to make sure that all your privacy controls are aligned. The default is completely porous? And why is it that our security and our privacy have become a setting instead of a right on our tools? And so those are the kinds of changes and upgrades that we want to see in the market, in the digital marketplace, for all consumers.
Yeah, and I think about how different the world is. Just like when I was at TWC in 1999, there was no social media. Like in a way, it's like I just think about how long, like how different the you experience the world as a consumer. Like it's a different experience now. So like if
It is, and think about the benefits. Like you thought 1999 was a long time ago. How do you think I feel? I was the class of 1981, and let me tell you something, that was way pre-internet. And not only was it pre-internet, but my college did not was not a participant in the TWC. So I went to a neighboring college and to use their library, and there was what was back in the day called a bulletin board. Now they're all now they're all digital. And I saw this sign for TWC. And I said, like, I want to do an internship. My college doesn't have one. And so I signed up for one that way. Now, I mean, you've got so many things at your fingertips. And the problem isn't like, a lack of information. It's that what is the information that you can trust, right? Where do I, what parts of this is actually trustworthy? And so to me, what I think really ignites our passion here at CR right now is because I think the kind of work that we do, trying to bring trustworthy data and facts and science to the marketplace, is really about as relevant today as you can imagine. We are more relevant today than then, only because, where do you turn to if you want something that is being generated by a nonprofit that doesn't take advertising and that is transparent about the work we do and how we test our products? So that means we're putting consumers first. We're not putting as a nonprofit, we're really not beholden to anyone other than the consumer.
Right. Wow. Well, and you'd mentioned about like consumer reports, and we all know some of the history involving consumer reports. Like my parents always trusted the magazine on choosing the products, and grandparents were into that as well. And I know that Consumer Reports has such a storied history in standing up for consumer safety. I know there's examples around seatbelts, making seatbelts mandatory in every new car, talking about the sounding the alarm on cigarettes. What are some of the recent safety issues that Consumer Reports has focused on, and what should those who are attending this session be aware of?
Well, thank you for that. And I appreciate that some of the older folks in your family are still reading the magazine. They love that magazine, but they're, what you all are using is really the digital, whether that be the website or the apps or some of the other tools that I'll talk about, to keep you plugged into how to engage with your power in the marketplace, and how to get fair and transparent transactions that you can trust. Well, let's start with the cars, since that's a real sweet spot for us. I mean, I think if you're thinking about buying a car, you're thinking about either buying a used car or a new car, you want to jump into the information we're providing for you, knowing that, as I said, we don't accept any advertising. We have a 375-acre test track in Connecticut where we test our cars, and we really run them through a great deal of rigor. But if you think about seatbelts, I mean, all of us think, well, seatbelts, something that was always in a car. We always thought about safety. That wasn't the case, right? So our founders had to fight to make sure that it was mandatory that you had a seatbelt in your car. And the technology that we have today, whether it be a backup camera or pedestrian warning, lane changing warning, that's remarkable life-saving technology. We now have all the data that suggests that it is a life-saving technology. But what you're finding is that it's still not mandatory, right? A lot of those things are considered luxury add-ons. So what we're saying is that life-saving technology should not be a luxury. It should be something that's available to everyone. It should be standard in every car, just like a seatbelt is standard. That is the technology and life-saving technology of today that's augmenting the seatbelt. So we're fighting for that. We finally won the fight for the backup camera, which is for anybody who has children. That's incredibly, that's an incredible tool that you get some comfort from. So yeah, it was only, I guess, maybe 3 years ago that every car coming off, a new lot had to have that backup camera. The other thing recently that we succeeded in was, believe it or not, over every year you see about 5,000 people end up in the emergency room because a piece of furniture has tipped over. And more often than not, they tip over on children. What we know about kids is they like to open those drawers and climb on the dresser. And because there is no mandatory standard for the physics of a dresser, so you go to a place, well, this is a good price, I'll get that. And you bring it into your home, you don't realize you're bringing something into your home that hasn't been tested. And that's the assumption so many of us make when we go to a marketplace or we go to a furniture store. We think whatever is here, of course, somebody has approved it and it's safe for me to bring into my home. And the tragedy of that is that it's children often that suffer, and so we finally, after a number of years battling, were able to pass something called the Sturdy Act, which really made it law now to have all new furniture dressers have mandatory stability standards. So those kinds of rules and guidelines, that's our sweet spot. That's where we really battle and go up against the powers that be. And some people always ask me, what's the difference between you and all those other free ratings I get? And it really is our nonprofit status. It's that we test the products ourselves. We choose and test those products ourselves. And we also are there when the marketplace fails the consumer or government fails them because they haven't created the standards that can save your child's life. Right now, we are battling a product out there called water beads for kids. These are look like little glass beads. You stick them in water for your kids and they're playing in the water. The problem is they look like candy. And if children ingest them, it's a tragic accident. And we already have seen some deaths. We shouldn't be fighting so hard to save children's lives, but we do, and we don't have all the resources or the enforcement mechanisms or the testing mechanisms in government. And so we're going to continue to do what we do because the market's a dynamic place. That's the product today. There may be 3 or 4 down the road, same thing. So I think that's, a way for us to keep government accountable. And we have a Consumer Product Safety Commission that is supposed to be watching out for us. We have to hold them accountable as well. So those are some of the things we're doing. The other products are tools, right? So a lot of us have been hearing the chatter about, how private are your, I was talking about the fact that you have to turn the controls, the privacy controls on in your phone or in your laptop, however you're thinking about the connected devices in your home. So we have a free security planner so that you can walk through that. It's available on our site. It's something it walks you through a series of checklists so that you can actually go through that and pick the kind of security checks that you want on your devices. And we also have something called Permission Slip, which is also an app that's available on Android as well as Apple. And what Permission Slip is you might say, well, why don't we have a national privacy law that guarantees your privacy online? This is your data. You don't want to be hacked. You don't want it to be sold. We don't. We have a number of states that have been moving the ball, but we don't want to patchwork. So we're going to work with those states to try to create incentives. Permission Slip is a tool that's also serving as an incentive. And what I mean by that is that we stood up a tool where you can actually go through the tool and search through hundreds of companies that are already collecting your data or you happen to be a member, you happen to do, and you could go in and in a swipe, that is as easy as those dating apps where you can swipe left or right, you can swipe, and Consumer Reports sends a note to that company on your behalf that says, please stop collecting their data. And that that's remarkable. We released it fairly recently, and we the first day it crashed the system. That's how many people were trying to get in. That's a good problem to have. We fixed it, but it was great to see that connect with so many people who are looking for a fast and easy way to send a message to these companies to stop collecting their data. And I think what we know is that when we do it en masse, as a consumer group, as a movement, we can get somewhere. And I've seen that time and time again. It happened with the furniture. We worked with parents whose kids were tragically injured and harmed. And we saw that you raise your voice and you can make things happen. And a number of people who probably listen experienced that when they may have had an internship in Washington. I certainly experienced it when I was there on the Hill, that we have a voice, and that is going to make our democracy stronger, but we have to exercise that voice with an organization that really is consistent with your values. If it's safety, security, sustainability, that's Consumer Reports, and that's really been at the heart of our mission.
I'm gonna, as soon as this is done, I'm gonna go download the permission slips, and I'm gonna go and check out all of the resources on the Consumer Reports website. But yeah, that sounds amazing, and thank goodness that Consumer Reports, you all have adapted over the years to what consumers need, as like the digital world has just exploded. So that is great. And then your answer was a great segue to my next question about your book is about consumer power, and I would love to get your point of view on what can the Washington Center alumni, folks listening in, do to engage in this consumer movement to improve consumer rights? What can we do?
Couple of things. Just the fact that you were part of TWC already tells me something about everybody in the room. And I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that I don't even think I'd have this job if it wasn't for TWC. Because the reality, Melissa, is that my internship was at Public Citizen, which was an organization that Ralph Nader founded. And so after a career in government, a career in philanthropy, in the nonprofit sector, when I was approached by Consumer Reports to lead this organization that is 600 people strong, that tests thousands of products a year, 5-6 million members, it really came full circle to me about my curiosity about consumer rights and how that's where it started. And that's the window that TWC offered me and gave me that opportunity and built a bridge for me to really be able to come back around full circle. So it's just remarkable. That is how my journey started. As far as, then what folks who are on the call can do is I talked about how the book is really a playbook. And after each chapter, I offer some advice about what you can do, how you can get involved. And we do have a lot of actions that we take and that we rely on our consumer base to really be a part of that. And that's a part, you can access that on our website. There is an action place in our website, and I'm looking to see if I've got that handy. I'll get it to you soon, and maybe we can put it in the chat. But that's a great way for you to just look through either the chapters in the book or on the site. There are probably some issues that speak more to you personally, and so start there. Whether it's food safety, a lot of us are very conscious, understand that our well-being is connected to the food we eat. And so it was immensely popular, and we got a lot of traffic to the site when some of our research demonstrated that And this was bad news for me because I'm a chocoholic. But what we learned was that dark chocolate, some brands of dark chocolate, have a number of heavy metals and lead at very harmful levels. And so we also learned that from a very popular candy that kids often eat around Easter time, which is those little yellow peeps, because those have a lot of red dye, number 3. And the problem with that is that red dye has already been banned from cosmetics. So why is it still in children's candy? And we have had great success once we published that, that some of the companies and the company around Peeps is already on a path to move away from that chemical. And we've also gotten some legislators to really start to pay attention and to move and make that happen. So it really does make a difference. And in each one of those instances, we did have engagement, sometimes from parents, and more often than not from folks who became part of the action plan.
Wow. Well, thanks, Marta, for answering a few of the questions I had. And then we, as people registered for this event, they submitted some questions ahead of time. And then I know we've got some chats for today that are that we've got from folks in the room. So you kind of touched on this one, but Dave from Virginia had asked, how did Ralph Nader influence you towards the position you're in today? And you've touched on that, but I don't know if you have any other Ralph Nader stories to share.
Well, I tell you, it started when I saw him on television. I didn't know where I wanted to intern. And at the time, he was on television a lot. I mean, one of the things Ralph did well was leverage his voice in the media, whether it be radio or television, and I was consuming a lot of stuff as a student. You're curious about the world. And I was so impressed by the way he went up against some very powerful corporations using facts and making very compelling arguments that were putting people first instead of profits. And I just picked up the phone and asked if I could have an internship. And they said yes. And so then I went to TWC and I said, I think I can get this internship. Can I be part of the program? So 3 cheers for that kind of flexibility and working with students and what their passions are. But what I think I took away from my observations and working in organizations that he seeded was this real passion to put people first, and also to do it by the rigor and discipline of getting the facts and shedding light on those facts to create change. But those facts alone aren't enough, right? You have to create a community that demands that. If you think of the marketplace as supply and demand, we are that demand side. We are that voice, not just with our pocketbooks, but also with our voice. And that really spoke to me. Wow. So I think he did. I think he did influence it greatly. And so no accident that many decades later, I'm back.
It's full circle. That's amazing.
I did find, by the way, the link about the actions that you can take. It's action.consumerreports.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Marta. And I'm sure we'll be able to share that with folks and make sure that people can access that. So we had another question from Alyssa from New York. She was asking, what should we look out during this busy shopping season? Now, I know that the Black Friday just happened, and that was probably a lot of us already shopped after that, after the Black Friday. But anything we should be looking out for the holidays?
Great question. So unfortunately, I love digital shopping. I really do. It's so convenient. If you don't have time, you just get on. Right now, I've got my laundry list of my nieces and nephews that I'm powering through to find what can I get for them. So I would say that you're also, you have to be careful about scams. And there are legal scams out there in the world. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but buy now, pay later is much more in the stream of transactions now. When you are thinking about signing out in the purchase that you've just done digitally, it sometimes gives you an option to do buy now, pay later. Be careful, right? Because sometimes the rules that guide the buy now, pay later, you miss a payment, you want to be careful. So I'd say buy now, pay later schemes, watch out, read the fine print. And also check out the site or our app for tips around what's on sale. Maybe you should wait a couple of weeks before you get that new stove, because we track the marketplace and we can tell you through patterns that we've tracked over time when the bigger sales are coming, and all of us are feeling it because of the inflationary pressure in the marketplace right now. So if you're looking for deals, I would say check back. We track those pretty rigorously, and we offer you a little schedule of, we think it's going to be this week, that month, when this product is going to be of greater value for you. And also, if you're thinking of surprising somebody with a new car, we can tell you a little bit. And I know a lot of folks right now are very interested in EVs, and we have just today, as a matter of fact, came out with our reliability scores for all cars. But we can give you some insight into what are the safest and most reliable cars in this moment for your value. And a lot of folks are interested in EVs, but they're really curious about whether the battery lives up to what the dealership is telling you it's going to live up to. And that's pretty consequential. So I would take a look at that too.
I'll have to let my husband know. He's always trying to figure out the EV because we haven't bought one yet, and so it's it's like it's new to the market, and so all of us.
And there are some pretty good tax rebates and things from the federal government around that. So you're going to want to check out the calculator to see how much of a discount you'll be getting.
Oh, great, awesome. And Alan from New Hampshire submitted a question. What will it take to get privacy legislation in the US and the prognosis for it?
Wow, I love that question. So I said earlier, we've got some privacy laws, California, Colorado, Oregon, Virginia. And we even got something called the Delete Act in California, where in one request you can tell data brokers to delete all the data they have on you. That's just one state. So what are we seeing? As I said earlier, we're seeing, 4 states. It's a patchwork. Why? Because we're not getting any federal legislation anytime soon. They're dragging their feet. I mean, you saw how long it took us just to pass a budget. So I don't expect anything to happen really soon, but putting the pressure on the federal government with tools like permission slip, which incentivize change and actually push companies and send a message to companies about, I don't want to be tracked. And if we could get the Delete Act and build momentum from that and move into other states, but it's going to take a lot of action and a lot of collective action. And so, sign up for that permission slip, start telling companies, out of my business, stop collecting data. I want more privacy. Look at that security planner. Unfortunately, you're going to have to play a little more defense now because we are not seeing the offense coming from either industry or government at this time. But it is a priority, and we need privacy should be a right, not a setting.
Absolutely. And we have another question from Andrew from Los Angeles. How do you feel about the FAIR Act, Forced Arbitration and Justice Appeal Act? We're TWC alum. We're going to be asking these questions.
This is a very well-informed group of people. I really love that question because it's a great example of the point I made earlier by how the balance of power is tipping away from us, the consumer people. And the FAIR Act is really illustrative of that, right? This is a clause that was really designed to protect companies, not consumers. And so, it's buried into pages and pages of fine print. And what it basically has given companies the right to do is that you purchase a product and you have no right to take them to court, and or to complain. And what you're left doing is something called forced arbitration. And what forced arbitration is a way for you to appeal, but you have to appeal behind closed doors with a mediator of the company's choice, right? So the awards tend to be smaller, no real safeguards and rights to appeal, and you really can't join together in any kind of a class action suit. So it's a real device that has watered down our power in a way that most consumers are not aware of. And you, as I said, it's forced arbitration as a way to give the companies a leg up in the event that something should go wrong. So it isn't by any means consumer protection. It is really something that is not transparent to consumers. And as I said, who wants to sit down and do an arbitration of the company's choice? It seems just before you even get to the table, you're in a losing position.
Wow. Well, thanks, Marta. I think that's all the time we have for questions. I did want to give you an opportunity to share any final thoughts with us as we wrap up. I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to share. You shared so much, but.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for taking time out of your day for all of us to be in community as TWC alums. As I said, TWC was the bridge to the life that I have, the professional life I have, and it has been such an honor to be able to work in fields where I feel that I could live up to the goal I set for myself, which was to make a difference in the world. And one of the things that TWC did for me was create connections and relationships when I went to Washington that I still hold to this day. And I think that's a big takeaway for all of us and I really appreciate the fact that you're bringing us all together, because it's those relationships and those connections that we have together and what we could do for the next generation of TWC alums coming through the program. I think TWC will be stronger with our continued support and connection to TWC. So thank you for bringing me into the room with everyone. And I'm as curious about all of you. So I hope to learn more with you in time. So thank you again, Melissa. You're a great moderator, and these were great questions.
Well, we got the best alums here, so no doubt they would bring the good questions. So
come visit us. Come visit us at cr.org. There's a lot of stuff you can read, and as I said, no advertising here. So I think you can always count on us to be a trustworthy partner to you in whatever decision you have to make.
Well, thank you, Marta. Big thanks to everyone who joined us today. I think we have our survey already in the chat. So if you want to suggest future speakers or topics for 2024, this is the time to do so. We also want to ask you to consider joining the Washington Center LinkedIn and Facebook alumni group. And if you don't know, right now we're running an alumni giving challenge for TWC, where 200 alumni gifts of any size in the next week will unlock $5,000 in matching funds for scholarships. So far we've had 152 alumni who've already supported. And if you're one of those, thank you so much. We just need 48 more alumni to meet the goal. So if you're considering it, we hope that you would give before December 6th. And as I said, we're already tremendously grateful for everyone who's already given and for all of you for joining us today. Wishing you a great year end, and hope to see you in 2024 at more TWC alumni events. Thanks so much.